I feel like
You're back, which either means the first video wasn't that bad or you're a glutton for punishment. Either way, out of gratitude for your return and respect for your time, we'll get right into the information, no hesitation. I've been to Japan 9 times. This is not a flex, there's a point to this story. Out of those 9 visits, I've stayed in numerous hotels and only one failed to reach the bar set by all the other Japanese hotels. And it was a total fluke. Japan had just opened its borders to tourism and only 30% of their hotels were opening. We were forced to stay in a smoke-friendly hotel and our stuff smelled like smoke. That was the worst experience. And I tell you this story so I can make this point. My belief is that no matter where you stay, hostel, hotel, Airbnb, you're gonna have a positive experience. That being said, if you wanted to just mimic some of the moves we made or turn your brain off and just rebook what we booked, great. Let's start with this. We use agoda.com whenever we book our stays in Japan. Agoda is a lot like Kayak or Expedia, but for Asian countries. A lot of the locations and prices you'll see there, you won't find anywhere else on the internet. And the first place we used Agoda to book was a My Stay in Haneda. When we landed, it was too late. We weren't gonna be able to connect up to Sapporo, so we stayed the night in Haneda. There was a free hotel shuttle that picked us up. The room was nice and cozy, more than adequate for what we needed. There was a little lounge space. There was also a gym. I forgot about that. That was the main reason we booked that place. There was also a restaurant on property that we did not utilize. Instead, we opted to walk to a convenience store that was close by, a common theme you'll see from Shell and I throughout these videos. Then when we took our travels north and arrived in Niseko, we stayed at the Lodge Moiwa 834. This place has an amazing spot in my heart. This is my 4th stay at that hostel, and yes, it's a hostel. Specifically, it's a capsule hostel. And if you don't know what capsule culture is about, basically, as I understand it, capsule hotels were a result of the work culture in Japan. A lot of commuters were working really hard days, and rather than commuting home, they wanted to stay in the city. Capsule hotels offered a cost-effective place for people to stay. It's basically a bunk that offers a lot of privacy and it cuts out all the frills of hotel stays, just what you need for a good night's rest and to set yourself up for a good day of work the next day. Lodge Moiwa is capsule, but it is high-end capsule. Each individual bunk is extremely well laid out. There's a place to hang your clothes, a nook to do some laptop work, a safe to lock up your passport, etc., and a nook for your items while they're charging. You can even change the mood lighting inside your bunk. Underneath each bunk is storage area for your soft goods, your luggage, your change of clothes, or whatever other fun things you brought with you to Japan. But for your bigger items and your wet items, they have a locker room for you to let your items dry overnight. They do have a restaurant on property, which is good because Lodge Moiwa isn't really close to much. It is directly across the street from Moiwa Resort, which is an amazing local vibe. It's connected to Niseko United, but it's not directly associated with it. And you can still get really deep, beautiful turns and be around what feels like more of a local crowd. But going back to the point that I just mentioned, it's kind of away from everything. In years past, they had an on-call shuttle service that would take you just about anywhere you wanted to go if it was available, as well as a shuttle that ran back and forth from the main Niseko area back to Moiwa. Due to COVID and other cutbacks, that shuttle didn't exist. So if you don't have a rental car, you're kind of stranded. They do have taxis, but the last time we stayed, there was a sign reading that taxis were hard to come by. So the second half of our stay in Niseko, we stayed in another place equally as far out as Moiwa, just on the other side in Kuchan. The difference being Kuchan felt more like a suburb, so there's a lot more convenience around the hotel we stayed at, which is Turafito Hotel. Turafito shares a parking lot with a Lawson's. It's also a stone's throw away from a Daiso, which is a dollar store, a grocery store, a ramen shop. And if you wanted to stretch that walk or get a taxi, which is a lot easier to come by in Kuchan, you can push it out further and find sushi and coffee. They also had a shuttle that ran way more frequently to the main Niseko village area. And the train station I wouldn't call it walkable, but again, you could hire a taxi and they had a bus that would drop you off there. The property itself, very similar to Moiwa. It has private rooms if you're traveling with a large party or if you just want to be away from the hostel vibe. If the hostel vibe is more of your flavor, if you're trying to keep your costs low, or if you're traveling solo, they have a hostel area, but it doesn't feel quite as capsule. It feels more like an individual, like a first class seat, which is what Torrefito used to be, first class. And they also have a restaurant on property. But here's where it's different from Moiwa. They have an onsen on property. I can't compare too many sensations to the exhilarating feeling of coming off the mountain, soaking wet from powder, and letting your bones unthaw in an onsen, only to walk to your room, crawl into your bed, and knock out. It has got to be top 3 sensations a human can experience. So experience it. So a quick recap of our Niseko stays. Both of them were away from the main village. Both were very cost effective. One was near a lot of convenience and had an onsen, which was a really great experience. One was directly across the street from powder turns, which is also an awesome experience. Do I recommend them both? You know I do. Then when we continued our stays, we headed to Otaru, where we stayed at a Dormy Inn. We fell so hard for that Dormy Inn that we booked another one for Furano. So a quick breakdown on why we love Dormy Inn. First and foremost, you get free ramen with your stay. Every night around dinner time, they have free ramen for every guest who's staying at the hotel. They have an onsen on property, which, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of onsens, but here's where it gets a little bit better. They have private onsens, and they're free. If you have tattoos and you're feeling self-conscious about exposing those tattoos, you don't want to be disrespectful, or if you want to spend time with your significant other who's not the same gender as you, they're not co-ed. Most onsens are not co-ed. A private onsen is a chance for you to hand select the people that you want to be with. They also have free ice cream that you can snack on after your onsen session. Hi Chica, did you see that they have ice cream and popsicles? Also complimentary? Inside that room to the left. And that is Dormy Inn in a nugget. Specifically, the Otaru Dormy Inn is directly across the street from a train station, so convenient location. They do have parking on grounds, but that parking is going to cost you. It's not free. And it's just a short walk away from the dessert boulevard. Don't know what it's really called, that Shell and I found, as well as the canal. The Dormy Inn in Furano, on the other hand, does have free parking. It's a little bit further away from the resorts than either of the other locations in Niseko that we stayed at, so that took a little adjusting. They also didn't seem to offer, at least at that time that we were there, a shuttle service. There was a public bus that you could take, but definitely leaning on that, rental car was huge for us at that stay. The property in Furano must have been brand new. The onsen was rooftop access, and it was outside. Amazing. And again, yes, co-ed. So Shell and I were able to share an onsen with all our tattoos. It was amazing. And then we had ice cream afterwards. And then we pretended like we could read manga. We can't read Japanese. Demo skoshi hanashimasu. And finally, on our way out, we found Kawasaki Skyfront. Beautiful building, great grounds. It had a very industrial feel to it. Just a stone throw from the airport, you could actually walk it, but they also had a shuttle service. There were 3 restaurants on property. You guessed it, Shell and I opted to walk to a 7-Eleven instead. They also had bike rentals, so if you had time to kill between your checkout and your flight, you could rent a bike and go bike around. There was an onsen on property, a gym on property, and the staff was amazing. In fact, this donut got left inside a towel that we used in the onsen, and they managed to find it and give it to a coworker of ours who just happened to be in Japan, and they brought it back for me. I do believe that's everything I can condense as quickly as possible with our hotel stays. All of those hotels are linked in the description in a Google Doc. If you have any questions, if you just want to talk about Japan, if you want to know about the slipper game, slide up in those DMs, comment below, and stay tuned. We will be talking about food next. Real quick, just want to say thank you to the brands that make my dope life possible. Okay, thanks.